Hello, everybody. This is Harvey from Passive Income Through Commercial Real Estate. Today we have SL van der Zanden. He has a lot of experience in the commercial real estate space. And today we're just going to try to pick his brain when it comes to retail investing. So SL, thank you for being with us today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. Let me ask you, SL, for people who don't know you, briefly, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I'm a CPA. So that means I started with an accounting degree, was an auditor, and worked on a large real estate portfolio as one of my clients. And from there moved to a young private equity firm that specialized in real estate syndications, and learned basically the real estate business from them. It was a great, it was my master's program, so to speak. And from there at 29, I headed out and started my first firm, and have done a couple of firms since then, all related to real estate, different business plans. Sold my last one in 2006 before the crash. Once the crash hit, I partnered with Brian Goldman, my partner, and it's founded CapRock, and our focus was on distressed real estate, primarily assets that were collateral for loans in default. And we built a vertically integrated firm with management, leasing, and sales. And then over the last couple of years have created a division to work on acquisitions and investments in commercial retail real estate. So that is my day-to-day focus, so to speak.
Okay. Well, thank you for that background, SL. So I know the point of conversation today is retail. Why retail, right? Can you just give us, for people who don't know the advantage of investing in retail, specifically shopping centers or neighborhood centers, someone who doesn't know anything about them, why would you tell them why retail?
Okay, so there's a lot of reasons to invest in retail sector real estate, but let's just talk at a high level on the things that are particularly attractive about it. And one of the first things you notice is that it has the highest yield or cap rate of any of the major commercial real estate property types. So what that means is, you're getting the most cash flow return and ultimately profit per dollar of invested in the real estate. Retail encompasses a lot of actual property types, from a mall to a power center, with a Home Depot or a Target in it, to community centers, which are smaller. They're typically called strip centers because there are a bunch of stores in a row. And that's where we invest our money, because for a lot of reasons, but the first one is because the point of the tenants that are there are to provide products and services that are day-to-day needs and important to the community around it, and which provides a resilience that helps them ride out cycles, because it's not as vulnerable to changes in trends. So let's talk about the types of tenants that we put in our centers or that are in the center when we buy them. And they are what I call Amazon resistant, which means what the tenant is selling can't be put in a box and shipped, or if it can be shipped, say like a pizza, it's not shipped, overnight because it wouldn't be any good. It's moved rapidly. So, but good examples of the types of tenants you're going to find in a neighborhood center are dry cleaners and hair salons and nail and fitness. Medical uses are a common growing sector that likes retail. They like the ability to be more visible to the community, say a dentist or a chiropractor or a beauty, products kind of place, or services like, the guy who does your tax return or a fitness center. So there's lots of uses that aren't as vulnerable to Amazon, changing the formula, or like, apparel or other commodity kind of goods that are easy to catalog, put on your site, and ship to the customer.
No, thank you for.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna piggyback on that. So great. So I wanted to dive in and thank you for that explanation. So I know you say shopping centers. There's a lot of investors that they think when it comes to shopping centers, they sometimes think of a single tenant net lease, standing, a lone standing building. Why? Because I know you don't focus on that. Why can you tell the audience why the advantage of having a multiple tenants as to have just having one?
So yes, so single tenant net lease is a product sector within real estate, and that's say like a McDonald's or a bank or a gas station. It has a single use, a single tenant, and the attraction to investors is it's like a bond that's collateralized by real estate. So the whole decision is the credit worthiness of that tenant and how long the lease is. They're great, except for two reasons. One, I don't like them because they have one of the lowest yields of any type of real estate. Because they're competing with bonds, they're priced more like a bond rate, which doesn't reflect a premium that you would get from a typical commercial real estate property. Secondly, something that happened during the global financial crisis is a lot of investors were seriously burned when that use either went bankrupt or the store went dark, and they suddenly had a building that was 100% vacant. So that leaves you in a situation where you're either writing a check every month to pay the mortgage, or you're walking away and losing all your equity. So I have a rule that it has to have at least 3 tenants in it to diversify the risk because you're going to have different uses. So let's say something happens in the dry cleaning industry. Well, like in the pandemic, the demand for dry cleaning went down because people weren't going to the office, and a lot of dry cleaners went out of business. So, but if you have a dry cleaner that goes out of business, you still have the pizza store, the hair salon, the nail salon, and to provide the income to keep you positively cash flowing and not at risk of losing your property to the lender.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I wanted our listeners to know that distinction. So always make sure you have at least a really good rule of thumb, right? At least 3 tenants there to cover your rear end, so to speak. But let's dive in into if you don't mind, let's dive in into the states that you focus on, because I know you describe yourself a little bit of a, not a little bit, more of a contrarian. I hope I'm saying that word right.
Yeah, kind
So
right.
contrarian. So what states do you focus on, and why?
So I am a bit of a contrarian, which, let's just start with the fact that I'm investing in retail real estate. And not only that, but the smaller neighborhood and community centers. The big boys, that's not what they're going after. If they are investing in retail, they're buying the top of the heap, malls and power centers that are in particularly strong demographic areas that are doing extremely well. Second of all, my contrarian view is that I'm going to look for the higher yield versus the other, the lower yields of the other property types. So third, I'm looking at investing in areas where there's less of as I say, a crowd, a lot of other bidders. And that means I stay away from the super hot areas, say like a Nashville or Florida or Texas or Phoenix or Salt Lake City or anything west of the Rockies or the south like Texas and Florida, which are super hot. There's too many buyers, in my opinion, and which affects prices and yields. And so I focus more on the Midwest. There's lots of solid cities in the Midwest that get overlooked by people, from the coast. Also, the Mid-Atlantic and the Southeast are both, I think, fairly priced relative to the prices being paid in the super hot areas.
So thank you for that as well. So can you give us a few cities that you really like for buying these shopping centers, just in general?
So I like what are called secondary cities. They're major cities are like Chicago, New York, LA. Secondary cities are like Kansas City or Minneapolis or Milwaukee, or we've owned a property in the Milwaukee suburbs. We own a property in Knoxville, Tennessee, which not Tennessee has Nashville, which is a super hot place that I would stay away from personally because it's super hot. But Tennessee is a no income tax state that is attracting a lot of new population, which retail is driven by how many people are available and how much money they have to spend on items that they need. So both are really good. But if you go along the coast, Carolinas have like Charlotte or Raleigh or Charleston or even suburbs of Atlanta. They're all priced, I think, more at a more attractive level than, say, Austin, Texas, or Salt Lake City, or some of the places I've already mentioned.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you for that, and I appreciate you explaining that. So, for people who don't know the difference between grocery anchored retail as to just or versus regular shopping centers, can you give us the definition and why the distinction between both of them? Because I know you like one more than the other. So for people who don't know that the difference, can you explain that to us?
Right. So grocery anchored centers typically have what they call inline retail, which is like mini strip centers attached or adjacent to them. And those can be attractive purchases because they then have the Amazon resistant tenants in the smaller spaces that are more flexible, that are easier to keep leased. The challenge with grocery stores is, again, if a grocery store goes dark or not a business or gets sold, and there's a consolidation and this store gets left behind, your cash flow is kind of devastated, and it makes it difficult to hold on to that property. And there's only so many grocery stores, so you have a limited crowd of potential tenants to replace it. I'm not totally opposed to grocery stores. Like the Kroger company owns a whole bunch of chains, and a lot of them are super strong, and Kroger is a strong credit. And so there's situations where I would buy a grocery anchored, but in general, that's not going to be my concern when I approach it.
Gotcha. Makes sense. So, SL, I appreciate you explaining to us and to everybody retail. I feel at this point a lot of people are going to be more knowledgeable than when they first started hearing this podcast, or the video. So, but let's dive in more in your firm, SL, if you don't mind. Where do you guys? I know right now you have a couple buildings under your belt. Where do you see yourself, or where do you see the firm going forward in the next couple years?
So we continue to provide third-party services to outside investors and clients, and that will continue. It's great having those services available because they help support the acquisitions we're doing. The long-term goal is to be primarily doing business on the portfolio that we own. I see steady growth. We are going through a slower time because of the high interest rates that the Fed has put on us. But we expect to grow a sizable portfolio. I think we will have like $500 million assets in like 5 or at most 8 years from now. So that will provide a lot of diversification. One of the cool things about the sector I'm going after is because the big boys aren't generally chasing these properties, there's a lot of fragmentation among ownership, and something that I intend to do by accumulating this larger portfolio is providing economies of scale and efficiency and the ability to go and sell some or all of it to a deep-pocketed capital source that would buy it at a lower cap rate than what I bought it at, which means that because cap rates and prices are go in opposite directions, the lower the cap rate, the higher the value. So I think that will be part of the attraction when we go to sell assets, that we'll be able to sell a portfolio of them at a better price.
Gotcha. Well, thank you for that, SL. Well, I think this has been a really interesting conversation. I really appreciate your time, SL. Before I wrap this up, anything you want to tell our audience or our viewers before I let you go?
I'm thinking that you've really covered all the bases. Obviously, I'm available to talk specific additional questions with any of your audience that wants to talk about it. It's something that I don't mind talking about. I enjoy this what I do, and so I encourage people to step forward if they have questions, either email or phone calls. I'm sure you can set that up.
Yeah, definitely. No, actually, that was going to be my follow-up question. So how can people find you and find Caprock?
So we have a website, of course. It's caprockre.com, which RE stands for real estate. My address is simply sl@caprockre.com. So and email is probably the best way to start the communication, and if the situation warrants, we could follow through with a phone call.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I'll make sure I'll leave all of the links down the description below. But SL, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for doing this, and I hope everybody got a really good nuggets from this conversation. And then I'll see you guys until the next one. Thank you, SL.
All right. Thank you, Harvey, for having me.
Of course. Bye, guys.